My name is Brian. I'm an installer here at TransferFlow, and today we're going to be installing our 70-gallon toolbox into a 2016 F350, and it's going to have our TRAX 3 system. So first thing you do is you open your box. It comes with the module, display, and harness, and then of course instruction sheets. So you have two instruction sheets, one for the TRAX 3, which is 877 for the Ford, and then the Toolbox instruction sheet, which is 881. So you go through the instruction sheets, and you have the foreword, a table of contents, notice and safety notes, and tools and supply requirements. And this is a parts list diagram. And it's very important to follow all of our instructions. They are constantly updated by our engineers to ensure a proper installation. So the first thing we want to do for the 70-gallon toolbox is measure the side rail of the bed as explained in our instruction sheet, so you get the height set for the toolbox. So on this truck, the height is about 20 1/8 inches. The toolbox will be sitting on top of here, so that's the measurement that you want. Once you got your height from the side of the truck, then you come down here with the tape measure, and we want it at 20 1/8, so we're going to have to raise this one up. So to do that, you take a 5/16 socket and loosen this side bolt, and then there's 3 more nuts on this adjustable bracket inside the tray. Okay, so once we got our tank height set, verify that it's the same in the front and the rear. Okay, so once we got the tank in place and where you want it to sit on the truck, you want to measure it, make sure you're centered, and then also make sure the depth is the same. Next step you want to do is mark the feet, the holes in the feet where you want to drill. Either a Sharpie or a paint pen and tape it to a stick. That way you can reach down in the back and reach the holes. And once you get all the feet marked out where you want to measure on top and underneath, and make sure you're not going to hit any fuel lines or harnesses or anything like that, and then you can begin drilling so that you can mount your tank. Okay, so after you have all your holes marked, you're going to want to drill them, and what we do is we start with the 1/4-inch pilot bit and go through all the feet holes, and then we'll come back through with the 9/16 to fit it, drill the holes out big enough for the carriage bolts to fit. Okay, so now I have all the 1/4-inch pilot holes drilled. I'm going to come back and go through it with 9/16. Okay, so once you have all the foot holes drilled, you're going to want to drill 2 passage holes for the fuel line and vent line, and then electrical in the sidewall. And for that, you're going to want to use an 1.25-inch hole saw. And also remember to, before you drill anything, to check underneath the truck to make sure you're not going to hit any fuel lines or fill lines or anything like that. Okay, so now we had all our holes drilled and we got cleaned up. Every time you drill through and you have exposed metal, you're going to want to get that with protection. So what we've done is mask this off, and we're going to hit it with a little paint. If you don't have the same color paint as your truck, or if it's bed lined or anything, clear will work also. Okay, so after you have all the holes sprayed and all the bare metals protected from rust, then you want to install these 2 1.25-inch grommets that are provided in the kit, and this is going to protect the fuel lines and electrical wires from getting chafed on the metal. Okay, so now we have our tank holes drilled and the tank is back out of the truck, and what we're going to do now is prep the tank to run our electrical and our fuel lines. So start by pulling off the fuel cap and then removing the cover box. And underneath the cover box, you'll see you have the fuel filter, fuel pump, sending unit, and then the rollover valve with the vent line already attached. So also in the tank comes a kit, and it has your supply line and a couple grommets and also the pieces of foam. And we use the foam on the bottom of the tanks for when you install a tank in a truck that doesn't have a bed liner in it. We like to put the foam in there so it's not metal on metal. Okay, on the 70-gallon toolbox, you have knockouts on the side of the toolbox, and what it is for is the fuel line is going to come off the fuel pump, and then also the vent line is going to come through. And if you can see on the side of the tank here, these are the knockouts, and they'll be different according to whatever bed size your truck is. So what you want to do is, once you get your height set and everything, then you want to figure out which ones we're going to knock out. And on this truck, we're going to knock these two out. So in the process of prepping your tank, you're going to want to install the module and the wiring harness and the supply and vent lines, and they're going to go through those two knockouts that we have. So this all comes in the kit that comes with your whole system. Okay, so now we're going to prep the tank and run the fuel lines and the electrical. So first of all, what I want to do is pull this nut off here, and we're going to install the module. The module there, it's a 5/16 nut or 8mm, either one works. And then, since we're going to be running the fuel lines and electrical down through here, it's a lot easier if you remove the pump, and then you can just undo this quick connect fitting here and remove these two nuts. They are both 5/16. To the side. And then you're going to want to take the two grommets that came with the kit and put them in those knockouts that you took out. And that's going to prevent the hoses from chafing on the metal. So first I take the vent hose, put it through the bottom hole, then next the supply. Okay, and then once you have that ran, you're going to take your harness, take this in. This is the end that's going to go to the cab. Run it through that top hole. Once you got that ran through, you want to plug your harness wires in, and this white one goes into here. Okay, so once you ran your harness through the hole, and you want to go back to the bag that came in with the electrical wiring harness, and it has all these electrical parts in there. What you want to get out of there is this square gasket. It goes over the end of this 10-pin connector, and once you have that on there, then go ahead and plug the connector into the module. And here you have the 12-volt power, and that's going to go red to black, red to black. And once you got that installed, go ahead and run these. There's going to be a purple wire and a black wire, and they're for the sending unit. Once you have all that installed, reinstall the pump. Make sure to plug in this hose first, the supply hose, put it back onto the studs, reattach this part. When you're doing that, on the pump plug it has this ground, so make sure that goes back on the studs. Tighten that down, both sides. And then the pump plug plugs into the orange and black wires, like so, and that's it for your tank prep. So as I mentioned before, the kit comes with 3 pieces of foam, and they are for the bottom of the tank. If your tank is not, or if your truck does not come equipped with a spray and bed liner or a plastic bed liner, then it's necessary to use this foam on the bottom of the tank to prevent metal on metal. I'm gonna run it sideways like so, make sure it's firmly pressed on both sides, and then one in the middle. Okay, so before you're about to put the 70-gallon tank into place, through these holes are going to go, I put the electrical down through the bottom hole, and then the supply and the vent are going to go through this hole, and then we're going to feed those through, and when you slide your tank into place, reach down and put them all the way in. We have the filling, the supply and vent tube in their place. We're going to rotate the tank onto its place and slowly push the hoses and route them through. Okay, so this is the hardware kit. It has all the bolts and shims needed to bolt down the tank, and it comes with the whole system. So what we're going to do is use 2 short bolts on the back and 2 long ones on the front, because in the front it goes through the hat section, so it requires longer bolts. Also in this kit comes these shims, and depending on where your feet have drilled come out, you might need to use these to compensate for the corrugations. Some vehicles may require the use of all 4 long bolts, just depending on where they come out, in case you go through both of the hat sections, which we'll show you further on in the video. Okay, so when you go to put the bolts in, you can see the carriage bolt has a square part on it, and that's going to lock into the square hole for the feet. So not down flush all the way, and it won't turn. Down both sides. Okay, so now we're underneath the truck, and as you can see, the bolt, this is a longer bolt. This is what I was telling you about earlier. This is a hat section. It's usually under the tank, not under the truck, and that's why you need to use the longer bolt for this area. And as you can see over here, we missed the hat section on the back, and that's why we use the shorter bolt. So once the bolts are through and you're underneath, then you want to take this washer, 3x3 inch washer, comes in the hardware kit, put that on, and then the shim, the stiffener, go over the top of that. And then use the nut supply. Go ahead and cinch it down, and then you want to grab a torque wrench and refer to sheet 484 in the kit, and it will tell you all the torque specs for everything you need. And this one is 32 plus or minus 2 foot-pounds. Okay, so now that we have the tank all bolted on and the bolts torqued down to spec, we are going to install the T. So first of all, the first lines that are coming through the bed, one is the supply and the other is the vent. And go ahead and take the vent and just trim it off so it's up above the bottom of the truck. And then the supply line is going to feed right into this vent line that comes off the truck. This is the fill hose, this is the vent. And for this application, we want to put the T as close as we can to the tank, because the vent has a tendency to run uphill, and if you put it back here, when it does a transfer, the flow will sit here and then it will prevent proper filling to the main tank. So now that I have this vent line pulled off of the tank, we're going to want to get the T very close to the edge of the tank. So on the T it has this tab, and the hose is going to end up on either side. So what you want to do is get a pen, get the placement of where you want your T, and go ahead and mark where that's going to go, and you're going to cut out that much of the section of hose. Also, you want to make sure that the T, the way it's angled in, that this part is going towards the tank. Now we're going to cut this section out. And then next, the kit also provides you with 3 clamps. These 2 bigger ones are going to go over the vent line. Okay, so once you have the T cut into the hose, then you want to take your clamps and cinch them down. Make sure your T is orientated properly. And once you get those all taken care of, you're going to want to take your supply line, and once you put this, when you're doing your orientation, you get an idea of where you want to cut this. And eventually, you're going to take this clamp that comes in the kit and put it over the supply line, and it's going to go on the T like such. Okay, so as you can see, the T is installed into the vent line, and I've made sure that I orientated it so that it is facing up, and that way the fuel will flow straight into the tank. So after the T's done, and that completes the toolbox, 70-gallon toolbox installation part of it.